The verb first, just to kind of get an idea of what to do with mögen. We have ich mag, du magst, sie es mag, wir mögen, ihr mögt, sie mögen. Now some of you might be asking yourselves, what's the difference between mögen and gern haben? And to be honest, there isn't one. You can use them interchangeably. They both mean the same thing. They both mean to like things. And so if you want, you can say ich mag Züge, or you can say ich habe gern Züge. Both of them are perfectly correct, but today we're going to be focusing on mögen. In section 2 here, we're supposed to fill in the blanks with the correct conjugated form of mögen. So for each one of these, we have to identify first of all what's our subject, and then conjugate mögen to go with that accordingly. So for this first one here, we don't have anything in front of the blank, and we have after the blank here du, and du is always the subject. So we know that du is the subject, so we have to conjugate mögen to go with that, in which case it would be magst. Magst du Eis? Do you like ice cream? Nummer 2. Same kind of logic, but this time we have ihr behind the blank, and therefore we have to use the ihr form, which would be mögt. Mögt ihr Wurst? Do you like sausage? Nummer 3. This one we have sie with a capital S directly behind the blank, which means that that's our subject here. So we have to say, mögen Sie Schach, Frau Dobler? Do you like chess, Mrs. Dobler? Nummer 4. Das Mädchen something Computerspiele. And here it could be ambiguous. It doesn't necessarily mean that the girl is the subject or that the computer games are the subject, but generally speaking, girls like computer games and not the other way around. So we're going to say that the girl is the subject here, and therefore we have to use the sie form, in this case the S form, and so we say das Mädchen mag Computerspiele. The girl likes computer games. Der Junge, same logic. Here we usually say that boys like turtles as opposed to the turtle liking the boy, and so we say here, der Junge mag Schildkröten. The boy likes turtles. Die Frau mag Schlagsahne. The woman likes whipped cream. Die Kinder something Käse. In this sentence we have die Kinder, which is actually plural, so we have to use the plural form, the sie form, they form, and therefore we use here die Kinder mögen Käse. The children like cheese. Die 7 Zwerge something Hexen nicht. In this sentence, die 7 Zwerge, the 7 dwarves, are our subject, and the Hexen are our direct object. So we conjugate our verb mögen to go with the plural form, the they form, and therefore we use mögen. Ich something Kuchen. In this sentence we have ich. Ich is always the subject. There are no exceptions to this. If ich is in the sentence, it's the subject, and therefore we have to use here ich mag Kuchen. I like cake. In number 11, we have here mein Bruder und ich. As I mentioned before, ich is always the subject, but in this case we have und in front of it, which means that we have my brother and I, which would make it the we form. So we use here the wir form, which is mögen. Mein Bruder und ich mögen Pizza. My brother and I like pizza. Meine Schwester und mein Bruder something mich nicht. In this sentence we have my sister and my brother as the subject, and so we have to use here the they form, mögen. Meine Schwester und mein Bruder mögen mich nicht. My sister and my brother don't like me. Schneewittchen mag Äpfel nicht mehr. Snow White no longer likes apples. Nummer 15. Wir mögen Käse. Mögen because that's the wir form, and wir is in the sentence, which is always the subject if it's in the sentence. It changes to other things in the accusative and dative. In section 3, we're trying to translate each of these sentences using mögen. It also says there's a hint that if you capitalize a verb, you can use it as a noun, which is called a gerund. This comes in handy in a couple of these sentences. Nummer 1. Do you, plural informal, like detective stories? So we start off here with the plural informal. Plural informal is the ihr form, and therefore we start off with our conjugated verb mögen to go with the ihr form, which would be mögt. Then the detective story is of course a Krimi, and so we say here in the plural, Krimis. Mögt ihr Krimis? Do you all like detective stories? The next one still says do you, but this time it's singular informal, the do form. So we say, magst du Filme? Do you like movies? I like swimming. In this case, we just want to say I like, and then the thing that I like. Since it's the thing that I like is swimming, I would say here, schwimmen, with a capital S to make it a gerund, or a noun. So I would say, ich mag schwimmen. I like swimming. Now, this is a little bit different than if I say ich mag schwimmen and I put it as a lowercase s, because ich mag schwimmen could be translated as I like swimming as in I like to watch swimming, or I like the sport itself, as opposed to I like swimming for leisure time activities and that's just kind of the thing that I do. Nummer 4. Mein Vater mag Golf. My father likes golf. Nummer 5. My mother likes tennis. Meine Mutter, of course, is the way that we say my mother in German. Mag would be the conjugation that we need to go with mother, and then tennis is a cognate, so we just say meine Mutter mag Tennis. Sleeping Beauty likes sleeping. No kidding. Sleeping Beauty is called Dornröschen in German, because it's actually thorn rose, and so we say here Dornröschen mag schlafen. In Nummer 7, Rapunzel is our subject, and so we have to use the RZS form again. So we say, Rapunzel mag Haar. Rapunzel likes hair. Nummer 8. The child likes running. Das Kind is the German word for the child. Rennen is the verb that we use to run. So we would say here, Das Kind mag rennen. If we capitalize rennen in this sentence, it might be confused with the noun rennen, which means race. So if you would say it as a capital letter, it would mean that the child likes racing, which is slightly different. Number 9. The dogs don't like the cats. The plural for dogs is die Hunde, and the plural for cats is die Katzen. So we have to say here, die Hunde mögen die Katzen nicht. We like books. This is relatively simple. We just use wir, followed by the conjugated form, mögen Bücher. Wir mögen Bücher. We like books. And because it's so similar to the other form here, we're going to try and do a little bit of practice with gern so that you can see some of the reasons that we might use gern as opposed to mögen. Mögen is almost exclusively used without an extra verb, but you can use gern with almost any verb that you want. So it gives you a little bit more versatility when using gern. So if I write a sentence and I just say I like something, like I like and then a direct object, I would probably use mögen. It's a little bit easier to say. If, however, I wanted to say something like I like and then some kind of a verb, I would say gern and that type of verb. So in the first one here it says, do you like to ride dragons? Ride would be our main verb here, and then we just use gern as an adverb to modify how we ride them. We like to ride them, that is. So, since this is the plural form here, we have to use the ihr form. So we say, reitet ihr gern Drachen? Do you like to ride dragons? Nummer 2. Do you, singular informal, like to read? So we start off here with our main verb, to read, which in the do form is irregular, and so we use liest, and then we just put gern at the end. Liest du gern? Liest du gern? Do you like to read? Hänsel and I like to hunt witches. The verb to hunt is jagen, so we would say, Hänsel und ich jagen gern Hexen. Herr Antrim likes to talk, as you can tell by watching this video. Herr Antrim redet gern. Reden is the verb to talk, and therefore we just conjugate that to go with the Herr Antrim in the sentence, and then put gern at the end. I like to ride my bicycle. Ich fahre gern Rad. I like to ride bicycle. Mother Hulda, which is Frau Holle in German, likes to make snow. So we would say, Frau Holle macht gern Schnee. Nummer 7. Prince Charming likes Cinderella. Prinz Charmant hat gern Aschenputtel. Nummer 8. Red Riding Hood, which in German is Rotkäppchen, likes to bake cakes. Backen is also irregular in the RZS form, so we take an umlaut. So it says, Rotkäppchen backt gern Kuchen. Nummer 9. The Brothers Grimm, which in German is Die Gebrüder Grimm, although there are other ways to say it as well, like to write stories. Die Gebrüder Grimm schreiben gern Geschichten. Nummer 10. The Frog Prince, der Froschkönig, likes to swim. So in this sentence, we would have to use schwimmen and conjugate it to go with der Froschkönig, and so we would say, der Froschkönig schwimmt gern. Now the second half of today's video, we're going to be talking about möchten. Möchten is actually the subjunctive form of mögen, and that just basically means that it's the hypothetical. So whereas mögen means to like, möchten means would like. As in, I would like this. So in order to conjugate it, we have to have ich möchte, du möchtest, sie es möchte, wir möchten, ihr möchtet, Sie möchten. Notice that the ich and sie es forms are the same for mögen and möchten. This is actually true of all modal auxiliaries. They all take the same forms for the ich and sie es forms. Makes it a little bit easier because you only actually essentially have 4 forms that you need to memorize. The ich and sie es forms are the same, the wir and the sie forms are the same, and then you just have du and ihr, which are different. Let's try out some practice with conjugating these in sentences. The first one here says dein Bruder und du right after the blank, and since du is always the subject, and since we have und in the sentence, and we know that it's you and your brother, we would have to have here the ihr form, möchtet. Nummer 2. This one has du after the blank, but there's not an und, so it's just du, which means we need the du form, möchtest du Abendessen mit mir essen? Would you like to eat dinner with me? Again, same thing for the next one where we have du after the blank, so we have to have here again, möchtest du zum Rockkonzert auch mitkommen? Would you like to go to the rock concert as well? The next one has ihr after the blank, which we assume is the subject here, so we would say, möchtet ihr etwas zum Essen? Would you like something to eat? Nummer 5. Das Fenster, something, nichts. Es ist ein Fenster. In this sentence, das Fenster is the subject, so we would say, das Fenster möchte nichts. The window would like nothing. It's a window. Das Mädchen, something, Eis bestellen. Das Mädchen möchte Eis bestellen. The girl would like to order ice cream. Der Lehrer. Der Lehrer möchte unterrichten. The teacher would like to teach. Der Verkäufer is the subject of the next sentence, and so we would say here, der Verkäufer möchte die Transaktion abbrechen. The salesperson would like to cancel the transaction. Nummer 9. Die Ärztin, the female doctor, something dem Patient helfen. So we want to say the female doctor would like to help the patient, and so we say, die Ärztin möchte dem Patient helfen. Die Kinder something Kuscheltiere kaufen. Die Kinder are a subject of this sentence, and since they're plural, we have to say die Kinder möchten Kuscheltiere kaufen. The children would like to buy stuffed animals. Nummer 11. Die Schüler. Die Schüler indicates the plural form of Schüler, and therefore we have to use here die Schüler möchten keine Hausaufgaben haben. The students would like to have no homework. Heute Abend something ich ins Kino gehen. Heute Abend möchte ich ins Kino gehen. Even though ich is after the blank in this sentence, it's still the subject because ich is always the subject. And besides that, this evening cannot be our subject. This sentence says, this evening, I would like to go to the movie theater. Nummer 13. Ich again is in the sentence, and therefore we have to use that as the subject. So we say, ich möchte zum Rockkonzert gehen. I would like to go to the rock concert. Nummer 14. Jetzt something wir nach Hause gehen. Wir is in the sentence, and it is always the subject, otherwise it changes to other things like uns. So we have to use the wir form here. Wir möchten. Jetzt möchten wir nach Hause gehen. We would like to go home now. Mein Bruder und ich, Ich is always the subject, as I've mentioned before, but this time we have und in the sentence with it, and therefore it's my brother and I, so we have to use here the wir form. Mein Bruder und ich möchten Fußball spielen. My brother and I would like to play soccer. Tanja something nach Europa reisen. Tanja is our subject in this sentence because nach Europa is a prepositional phrase, so we use Tanja möchte nach Europa reisen. Tanja would like to travel to Europe. In section 3 it says to translate these sentences using möchten. And unlike mögen, möchten is almost always used with a different verb. So it's used with möchten, and then in addition to that, another verb in the infinitive form at the end of the sentence. So in this sentence it says, he would like to eat. He is and then would like is the möchten part, and we have to conjugate that to go with the form, so we have möchte, and then our other verb, to eat, at the end in the infinitive form. Möchte essen. He would like to eat. I would like to go home now. I is the subject of the sentence, so we say ich möchte for the I would like part. Then we have to have time, manner, place, Zeit, Ort, Platz, so we have jetzt and then nach Hause. Ich möchte jetzt nach Hause. Gehen is in parentheses at the end of this sentence because nach Hause tells us that we're probably going towards home, and therefore we don't really need to say gehen again. It's a little redundant. Nummer 3. She would like to buy the detective story. Sie möchte den Krimi kaufen. Sie is our subject here. It's the RZS form, so we use möchte. Den Krimi is the accusative direct object, so we say den Krimi. And kaufen goes at the end of the sentence as our infinitive because that's where the other verb goes when you use a modal auxiliary like möchten. The girl would like to dance. Das Mädchen möchte tanzen. The girl would like to dance. Möchte is the conjugated form that goes with das Mädchen, and tanzen is our other verb at the end of the sentence as the infinitive. The teachers would like to have a vacation. Die Lehrer möchten einen Urlaub haben. In this sentence, we don't really necessarily need haben at the end of the sentence because it would make just as much sense to say the teachers would like a vacation. In both languages, that works out without having to have in the sentence or haben. Nummer 6. We would like to see a concert. Wir möchten ein Konzert sehen. Sehen is at the end of our sentence here because we have to have an infinitive at the end because we used möchten where the normal verb would go. Nummer 7. Would you, plural informal, in other words the ihr form, like to swim? Möchtet ihr schwimmen? Would you like to swim? You could also say möchtet ihr baden gehen? Would you like to swim, as in like a leisure time activity as opposed to schwimmen, which is generally speaking going to be the activity of like a sport or something like that. Would you, singular informal this time, the du form, like a cake? Möchtest du einen Kuchen? Would you like a cake? Notice that I didn't put haben or essen at the end of this sentence, because generally speaking, if you're saying möchtest and you're talking about food, it's probably implied that you mean to eat it or to have it, because, well, having your cake is basically the same thing as eating it, no matter what people will tell you with that wonderful phrase of you can't have your cake and eat it too. That's not true. I'll have my cake and eat it. That's the point. Number 9. Would you like to have my homework, Mr. Antrim? In this sentence we have Mr. Antrim, so we would use the Sie form. Möchten Sie meine Hausaufgaben haben, Herr Antrim? We don't really necessarily have to have the haben at the end of the sentence again, because you could say again, would you like my homework, as opposed to saying, would you like to have my homework? It's the same basic principle. Möchten Sie meine Hausaufgaben haben?
Die Modalverben im Präsens und im Präteritum. Präsens. Dürfen. Ich darf, du darfst, er darf, wir dürfen, ihr dürft, sie dürfen. Können. Ich kann, du kannst, er kann, wir können, ihr könnt, sie können. Mögen. Ich mag, du magst, er mag, wir mögen, ihr mögt, sie mögen. Müssen. Ich muss, du musst, er muss, wir müssen, ihr müsst, sie müssen. Sollen. Ich soll, du sollst, er soll, wir sollen, ihr sollt, sie sollen. Wollen. Ich will, du willst, er will, wir wollen, ihr wollt, sie wollen. Präteritum. Dürfen. Ich durfte, du durftest, er durfte, wir durften, ihr durftet, sie durften. Können. Ich konnte, du konntest, er konnte, wir konnten, ihr konntet, sie konnten. Mögen. Ich mochte, du mochtest, er mochte, wir mochten, ihr mochtet, sie mochten. Müssen. Ich musste, du musstest, er musste, wir mussten, ihr musstet, sie mussten. Sollen. Ich sollte, du solltest, er sollte, wir sollten, ihr solltet, sie sollten. Wollen. Ich wollte, du wolltest, er wollte, wir wollten, ihr wolltet, sie wollten.